150 years ago, on January 20, 1872, about 200 Filipino military personnel of Fort San Felipe Arsenal in Cavite, Philippines, staged a mutiny, which in a way led to the Philippine Revolution in 1896. The 1872 Cavite Mutiny was precipitated by the removal of long-standing personal benefits to the workers, such as tax or tribute, and forced labor exemptions, on order from Governor-General Rafael D. Izquierdo. The mutiny was quickly crushed, but the Spanish regime under the reactionary governor, Rafael D. Izquierdo, magnified the incident and used it as an excuse to clamp down on those Filipinos who had been calling for governmental reform. A number of Filipino intellectuals were seized and accused of complicity with the mutineers. After a brief trial, 3 priests, Jose Burgos, Jacinto Zamora, and Mariano Gomez, were publicly executed. The 3 subsequently became martyrs to the cause of Philippine independence. Cavite Mutiny is one of the greatest historical events of the Philippines and a major awakening of nationalism among Filipinos. However, this event became controversial today because there are many accounts that speak to the causes and the event itself.
First-hand account. The account of Jose Montero y Vidal, a Spanish official in Manila at the time of the event, is the fullest account of the mutiny itself. It embodies the official interpretation of the mutiny in Cavite as part of a general revolt directed by 3 priests and their lay and clerical colleagues in Manila and Cavite, having as its aim the assassination of the Governor-General and a general massacre of all Spaniards. Published only in 1895 at the height of the Filipino nationalist campaign, Montero's account is strongly hostile to Filipino reformist aspirations, has no doubt of the guilt of those executed or exiled, and places much of the blame for the revolt of 1872 on the alleged tolerance of Governor-General Carlos Maria de la Torre in the period of 1869 to 1871. In a lengthy appendix to his own account, Montero reproduces selections from that given by Edmond Plucio, a freshman resident in Manila for some years, indignantly or sarcastically denying various allegations of the latter.
First, the account of Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, a Filipino physician, historian, and politician of Spanish and Portuguese descent, who served as Deputy Prime Minister of the Philippines in 1899. Trinidad, also known by his name T.H. Pardo de Tavera, was known for his writing about different aspects of Philippine culture. The Filipino version of the bloody incident of Cavite in 1872 was written by Dr. Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera, and according to him, this incident was merely a mutiny by the native Filipino soldier and laborers of Cavite Arsenal against the harsh policy of despotic governor and Captain General Rafael de Escudero, which abolished the old-time privileges of exemption from paying the annual tribute and from rendering the polo. The loss of these privileges was naturally resented by the soldiers and laborers. Tavera believed that the Spanish friars and Escudero used the Cavite Mutiny as a powerful lever by magnifying it as a full-blown conspiracy involving not only the native army but also included residents of Cavite and Manila, and more importantly, the native clergy to overthrow Spanish government in the Philippines. This turnout of event was believed by Tavera prompted the friars to do something drastic in their dire to maintain power in the Philippines.
Edmond Plauchot, a Frenchman residing in Manila at the time of the revolt, gives a dispassionate account of it and its causes in an article published in the French literary magazine Revue des Deux Mondes in 1877. His account complemented Tavera's account by confirming that the event happened due to the Governor-General Rafael Escudero y Gutierrez exacting of personal taxes from the soldiers and workers as well as his imposition of forced labor on them, which results to the discontentment of the workers and soldiers in the Cavite fort. On 20 January 1872, the day of the mutiny, the workers received their salaries and were surprised and angered at the same time due to deductions of tributes and payments in lieu of forced labor from their salaries. They staged the mutiny right away, but it was crashed as soon as it started because of a lack of coordination between the mutineers.
Rafael Geronimo Cayetano de Izquierdo y Gutierrez served as the Spanish governor of the Philippines from April 4, 1871 to January 8, 1873. His violent policies caused a rebellion by the army. His leadership in the Philippines is known as Iron Fist. He imposed a reform that suggested that the soldiers of the engineering and corps should pay taxes, from which they were previously exempt, and they were also required to perform manual labor. In Rafael Izquierdo's account, a group of native Filipino priests became brave in the pulpit against the oppressive Spaniards. Padre Jose Burgos is the voice of the Filipinos in the pulpit that reveals the evil of the Spaniards. Filipino lawyers began to organize propaganda against the Spaniards. He also reported that 3 Filipino priests named Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Amora are planning to liquidate the Spanish rules and take over their positions. Spanish friars are angry with Father Burgos because of his campaign to secularize all Catholic churches and schools covered by the church. The Spanish friars will lose their power and it will all go to the Filipino priests.
Two other contemporary residents of Manila who wrote the subject of Cavite Mutiny offer little in the way of factual information. Felipe de Convantes, in his Compendio de la Historia de las Filipinas, Govantes was a long-time peninsular Spaniard resident of the Philippines, where he held various positions in the bureaucracy. His account of the regime of Gobernador de la Torre, though disapproving of latter's democratic method, has nothing of scorn and indignation of Montero y Vidal, nor does he mention any names in connection with the manifestation held at that time. Similar caution, he narrates the revolt of Cavite, not making clear to whom he attributes the responsibility, though he mentioned that almost all those who took part in the manifestation at that time of De la Torre were condemned by the military tribunals in 1872. He hints that not all were actually guilty, noting that opinion in Manila was divided respect to Izquierdo's action during in his term.
Father Pablo Pastels. One further apparently contemporary account remains, whose author cannot be determined with certainty, and which has been published only indirectly. The published version is that contained in Father Pablo Pastel's History of Jesuit Philippine Mission in the 19th century. Pastels arrived in Manila only in 1875. Hence was not himself a contemporary witness, but a comparison of the account to be found in his book with a manuscript history of the Ateneo Municipal extant in Jesuit archives in Spain, entitled Historia del Colegio de la Inmaculada Concepción que tiene la misión de la Compañía de Jesús de las Islas Filipinas en Manila, shows that Pastels has copied it almost word for word from the manuscript history. This latter account was written by a Jesuit resident in the Ateneo and completed by 1874 at the latest. The account of the revolt adds nothing to the facts established from the general agreement of the other contemporary accounts, except to add some details on the role of the Jesuits in assisting the condemned priests. The account of the Christian resignation with which the 3 priests went to their execution, though couched in general terms, would seem to support Montero y Vidal's rejection of the dramatic incidents related by Plauchu. Unlike Montero, however, the narrator and Father Pastels expresses the general conviction of Manileños that many of those condemned were unjustly or at least excessively punished and did not receive a fair trial.
The Cavite Mutiny is an aim of natives to get rid of Spanish government in the Philippines due to the removal of privileges enjoyed by the laborers of Cavite, arsenals such as exemption of tributes and forced labors. In the Spaniards' accounts, 1872 was premeditated, a part of a big conspiracy of educated leaders, mestizos, lawyers, and residents of Manila and Cavite. The account detailed that on January 20, 1872, the district of Sampaloc celebrated the feast of a Virgin Loreto. Came with it some fireworks display. The Caviteños allegedly mistook this as a signal to commence with the attack. However, according to the Filipino accounts, the friars used the incident as a part of larger conspiracy to cement their dominance, which had started to show cracks because of discontent of the Filipinos. They showcased the mutiny as a part of a greater conspiracy in the Philippines by Filipinos to overthrow the Spanish government.
There may be different versions of the event, but one thing is certain. The 1872 Cavite Mutiny paved way for a momentous in 1898. The road to independence was rough and tough to toddle. Many patriots named and unnamed shed their blood to attain reforms and achieve independence. In 12 of June 1898 may be a glorious event for us, but we should not forget that before we came across to victory, our forefathers suffered enough. As we enjoy our freedom, may we be more historically aware of our past to have a better future ahead of us. And just like what Elias said in Noli Me Tangere, may we not forget those who fell during the night.